Good morning, I'm David Nelson. We are following breaking news right now. A fire has broken out at the Credit Island Clubhouse in Davenport. Amber O'Brien is there live right now. Amber, what can you tell us?
David, we just arrived on scene, and you can actually see the flames still billowing out of the top of the clubhouse. And as we zoom in closer, just take a look at that roof. Clearly, it's collapsing. And you can also notice that the flood walls there, that was from just 2 weeks ago. One of the main issues for firefighters arriving on scene was driving down Credit Island Lane. I'm told that it's difficult to get these big trucks and vehicles down here with water, supplies, and firefighters. And that's one of the main issues they're dealing with right now. Currently still battling the flames. It's a little bit difficult to see the smoke just because we do have that dark sky because of the rain. I'm not sure whether or not that rain is helping or hurting the situation here.
Dozen units. There is virtually nothing left for more than a dozen families. You can see firefighters. They are still on scene right now, actively searching for hot spots, still really working to save what they can of this building, even as the people who live here work to figure out what they do next.
I never experienced this, my very first time in my life.
Something no one wants to experience, something that's hard to imagine for most of us, losing everything in a fire. And this one happening just 2 days after Christmas.
I went outside to take my kids out there. There was one right here next to me, and there's one behind me. And my other kid's mom yelled out there and said, "There's a fire, there's smoke." So I ran up the stairs and get everybody out as soon as I can.
Residents running out with just the clothes on their backs and what they could grab. Arriving firefighters told people were still inside.
Our first priority was to be sure that we did get everybody out of the building, and as a consequence, the fire got a little further along.
You can see smoke pouring from doors and windows, flames shooting out of the back and from the roof, where firefighters worked furiously to save the building.
A quick rundown here of what we have going on for warnings at this time. Active warnings north and south of the Quad Cities. North of the Quad Cities, you have an active flood warning right now. That means rivers and streams have jumped their banks.
Amber, what's the very latest out there?
Well, Melissa, River Drive is virtually just a river this morning, making it difficult for drivers, especially as they start to head to work. But just take a look at this manhole that is just gushing water here over River Drive. This has been happening for at least 6 hours. Crews have been on scene for about 4 of them trying to guide traffic. But just look at the amount of water that is flowing out of there. And this has really been at that pace for, again, those 6 hours. You can see how much it has puddled. Now I would guess to say it's at least 6 inches deep here in the lower lying areas. And
now let's see what conditions are outside. KWQC's Amber O'Brien has been out since early this morning, and she's seen her fair share of flooding. So where are you right now, Amber? And is the water starting to go down, at least from the roads?
Well, Marcia, we are down in LeClaire Park. We've been from on the Bettendorf side all the way through Davenport, even to the north side of Davenport. And this is really what we're looking at here. This is the worst of it at LeClaire Park. Water obviously flowing in from the river, almost hitting the grandstand there at LeClaire Park. And one thing that they are looking out for is the River Bandit Stadium. They have been sandbagging that and really making sure that the stadium is clear for the past few hours.
That tops your news at 6 tonight. Team coverage of the flooding. I'm Paula Sands. Gary Mativier is in Kelowna, where many homeowners are having a rough time tonight, Gary.
They certainly are, Paula. You can see it right behind me here all along this road, these houses. The water is starting to pull back tonight, but this is flash flooding. You know, the Rock River is not very far from these homes, but that is not where this water came from. All this water came from the sky, and it came down in a hurry.
And this is going to be your first indication that the air is going to become much more volatile as the winds really start to pick up under this. And we can even see it moving definitely on our sky cam right now. Yeah, what I want to show you, there's how we tell you that the rain goes from nothing to something that you won't believe in just a matter of minutes. You see that piece of sky that we're just about to lose on the right, and then in the foreground you see the sheets of rain, and then look at how quickly the visibility goes to almost nothing as we are just splicing this line of rain in half with our sky cam as it's coming through right now, and I'm sure that we're going to start to hear it right on the roof of the
and
studio.
they just issued a new thunderstorm warning for the whole Quad Cities metro now, Eric.
As this system was coming up to the metro, we had a crew on the other side of it waiting it out in Eldridge. And this is what Mike Ortiz, our chief photographer, saw as it came in and came overhead. Of course, this again after he was safe in a safe place, came out, and this is what he saw, not heading towards him but going away from him. I believe we have, and there, wow, look at that shot right there. We have Mike Ortiz, I believe, on the phone. And Mo, can you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at? It appears to be, and I know you're an expert in terms of, you've been shooting here for us for decades. What did you see today?
Well, you and I had talked like 5 minutes before, and I knew I had to get off the road. The clouds that I was looking at looked pretty ominous, and by the time I parked, that sort of cloud was moving in, and it was moving in quick. The temperature changed quickly, and I knew at that time that I probably needed to take shelter right away.
We are following breaking news this morning out of West Davenport, where an officer was involved in a shooting. TV6 was first on the scene this morning, and KWQC's Amber O'Brien joins us live from the scene with new details. Amber, what's the latest?
Well, we are live from the scene of the officer-involved shooting. Police responded early this morning for a call of an individual sleeping in his car in the alley of 900 West 16th Street. Davenport police tell us the suspect was held down when he got out of the officer's hold, and then 3 to 4 shots were fired. The suspect did have a weapon on him, and we know both the officer and suspect have been brought to the hospital. Police are still on scene investigating.
Tragic, horrifying, sad.
Tragic, sad, empty. It's like the town is empty now without it.
Graduations, weddings, reunions, memories made at Dell's that went up in flames.
I have no words for it. I mean, I have so many memories in the reception hall. You know, my first dance with my husband.
When my dad was alive, we used to have burger baskets here Monday nights, Taco Tuesdays.
And for Nicole Del Vecchio, Dell's Eatery and Pub is part of her family.
This is my brother and my dad's bar. This is their life. I grew up here as a kid, you know. It's gone.
Nicole and her family have put years of hard work into this place, only to see it shrouded in thick black smoke, the family business giving in to the flames.
Can't believe it's this bad. It's gone. Eldridge is a small town, and, you know, everybody knows Dell's, and I know it's like a family, and it's going to be hard for everybody.
Although Nicole really did grow up here, many people in the community feel like they did as well.
Just watching this burn down really makes you want to cry.
Absolutely, Sharon. You know, the word we've heard over and over again today is devastating, and you can see why. Really, all that's left of this local landmark sits here behind this crime scene tape. You can see a charred pile of rubble, some melted siding, basically a few walls. It's so different from what Dell's was, and showing us nothing of how hard crews worked to save it. The sky glowed orange for hours this morning. Crews from more than a dozen departments doing their best to knock down the flames, to just stop them from spreading. They were called out just after 8, just after Dell's had opened for the day. We're told one person was on site at the time, able to get out. No one was hurt, but by the time firefighters arrived, they tell us the banquet hall here was engulfed in flames. Those quickly spread to the rest of the building.
But we begin with breaking news tonight at 5 out of LeClaire right now.
Yeah, a boat that typically pushes along barges on the river is itself sinking. Let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. We have our live sky cam from LeClaire. I can tell you that during the 4 o'clock news hour, the boat there, which you see in the center of your screen, was pretty much had water up to the first deck. Now it's actually tipped on its side and partially submerged in the Mississippi.
And we start at 6 tonight with developing news out of LeClaire. Good evening, I'm Paula Sands.
And I'm Gary Mativier. A boat that typically pushes along barges along the river is apparently, at least in part, sinking tonight. KWQC's Taylor Umlin is up in the LeClaire area with the latest from there right now. Taylor?
Yeah, Gary, details still a little sketchy, but here's what we know right now. Police, fire, all here, Coast Guard as well, putting protective absorbent materials in the water because a boat is sinking here in LeClaire, just across from the Mother Hubbard's cupboard. But what they're doing is they're putting some absorbent material into the water We don't really know why, but the thought is that they're putting it in there because there might be dangerous materials from the boat going into the water. This is a tugboat, something that would be used to guide barges up and down the river. But one thing, what we can tell you is that this happened about 4:30 this afternoon. Like I said, Coast Guard is here. This is the boat called the Stephen Colby of Marquette Transportation. Crew members are safe. I talked to them earlier, and everybody is accounted for. They're not here right now. They were taken away from the scene, but right now we do know that fire, Coast Guard, police, they're all here making sure the water is as safe as possible and trying to contain this situation.
An update now on a story we brought you as breaking news earlier. Police, fire, and Coast Guard crews all in the scene in Clare today after a 140-foot towboat used to guide barges up and down the river began sinking in the Mississippi. Let's take a live look now. You can see the UTV Stephen L. Colby is still in the water tonight. You can see there was listing a bit. The boat was punctured south of the Quad Cities when it apparently hit a submerged object. That boat is holding about 100,000 gallons of fuel. Divers were in the water tonight trying to determine what the damage is and whether or not any fuel is leaking from it. Crews on scene are investigating the extent of the damage and what sort of leak they may be dealing with, if any, tonight. The police chief in LeClaire says you cannot be too careful.
89,000 gallons is a significant amount of fuel. It'll disperse in the water if it's not contained, and then can be an environmental issue. And that's what, at this point, we have no injuries. Everybody is safe. So that's our next priority.
Officials say their goal is to contain the fuel, but eventually they'll have to try to get this boat out of the water. We're told that probably won't happen until later this week.
One man is dead, another in the hospital after two men went over the steel dam on the Rock River. It happened just after 4:30, just west of the Rock Island Milan Parkway. Two jet skiers found themselves in the water, at least one trapped by churning water. KWQC's Danielle McCarthy is live there now. And what can you tell us at this point, Danielle?
Police got the call around 4:30 this afternoon that two jet skiers were in the water and they were in trouble. First responders and passersby gathering right here, ready to help if needed, afraid of the worst but hoping for the best. Witnesses say the two men were on jet skis one moment, then the next they weren't. One of the skiers tipped over, falling off his machine and got trapped. Then the other skier tried to help him and got stuck as well. You can see one of the men in the video right here, right in front of the dam, holding on to something, trying to stay afloat in the rushing water. Witnesses say he was there for an hour or more battling the current. We talked to the woman who called 911, who says she was just scared. She couldn't believe what was happening.
I seen them go down right away, and I was like, we needed to call right away whether they looked like they were getting out or not. So it was just, it's very unfortunate.
There was a helicopter on scene, but the rescue crew didn't end up needing it. Crews threw a line of flotation devices at the man, who was able to catch them and then was dragged to shore and taken to a local hospital. Rock Island Arsenal recovered the body of the other man. Officials aren't identifying who he is right now. Reporting live in Milan, Danielle McCarthy, KWQC TV6 News.
Developing story we've been following all night. Witnesses are describing it as a vicious attack. Last night, two dogs mauled a man in the middle of a Clinton neighborhood. We're working to get details from police right now, but we've already talked to a woman who saw the attack and took action to try to save a man's life.
Sound like you're a nurse. 30 years.
Kathy Buckaloo spent 30 years as a registered nurse, mostly in the ER, so she knows how to deal with trauma.
You could tell he was in shock and he'd lost a lot of blood. I didn't know if he'd make it from here to the hospital.
Tuesday night, Kathy needed her years of ER experience to help a man in her own front yard.
We were home about 15 minutes, and we had been at the kids' ball games, and we heard somebody screaming for help and to please call the police.
Kathy saw two dogs attacking a young man in the middle of the street.
My husband went out with a baseball bat, tried to help him, and while I'm on the phone to the police, he's yelling at the kid to come up here, get up here, get up here to the steps, we'll get you inside. Because we couldn't get out there because of the dogs, and the dogs came right up to my door and would not let go of him.
Kathy and her husband were both afraid and frustrated.
To know, what to do, and you couldn't get to him to do it. We couldn't get the door open enough to get him in without those dogs coming in with him. I was screaming, I was crying, I was hysterical. I knew what I had to do, but I had to be able to get to him to do it.
When police arrived, Kathy says officers fired shots.
They told the kid to lean as close to the house as what he could, and they shot the dogs.
The dogs managed to run away, giving Kathy and her husband time to help the young man.
I ran in the house and tied together 2 rubber gloves and made a tourniquet.
Kathy's ER experience and fast action could be what saves a man's life.
I just hope he's okay.